This is another episode of the Flight Ringers podcast. I'm David King. That's Dan Spottswood.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
We are professional cartoonists, and we are Legion of Superheroes experts. All right, let's check out the letters page for Adventure Comics 375. I don't know what issue they're going to be addressing here.
I don't feel like they get very specific in here anywhere.
They may not.
There are a couple references to Chemical King and Timberwolf joining.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're like the new guys in issue 375. They point out that they're the newbies and they got something to prove to try and become the mightiest Legionnaire. We
have someone asking why Ma and Pa Kent are younger all of a sudden. They kept that for a long time. I thought that was probably a good idea. Like, it sort of doesn't make sense that they were that old to begin with. I guess they made them old originally because obviously he wasn't going to be Superboy, and they just needed a device to explain how this baby was raised, and then conveniently they die off right when he becomes an adult.
Well, but also in the early Superman comics, didn't they say he was raised in an orphanage?
I think Ma and Pa can't always find him, but in some of them, they take him directly to an orphanage.
Yeah.
And that's how, like, the Fleischer cartoon explains it. But then, for a long time, they took him right to the orphanage, but then they adopted him. Probably because they didn't want to seem like lawbreakers, I guess. We'll have the characters do the right thing and turn the kid into the authorities and then take him back. But then eventually they're like, that's stupid. You know, they're just going to hang on to him and say it's theirs. Like they should have all along.
Right.
But anyway, so once they decided to introduce the Superboy thing, they kept them pretty old. I guess they were so elderly by the time they had died when he was 25 or whatever. They couldn't be any younger than like in their 60s when he was a kid. So they did that for a while, but nobody in their 60s has a 15-year-old kid. Well, maybe they do now. I will. But
like I might have a kid maybe someday.
Yeah.
And I would be 60 very soon when he's 50.
At any rate, the meteorite or whatever it was that de-aged them, I think that was an attempt to make it make more sense. Like,
right, it wasn't a meteorite. I read this comic not too long ago. This is a totally ridiculous comic where a television producer from another dimension is recording the events of regular day-to-day life here on Earth, and he starts recording the Kents as a TV show. He tries to pass this off as a show that's filmed in a studio with actors, but it's actually super cheap for him to just record stuff happening in another dimension, right? So he takes the story of the Kent family, shows it to his network, and they're like, we love this, but we just want one change. These people playing the parents are too old. Recast them and come back to us, and we'll put your show on the air. And so he comes up with some machination he doesn't replace them. He sends some kind of element or something that it's like kryptonite, but it turns them younger.
No.
And just to produce this TV show. But there's like a stupid twist where he does it, and then the TV network guys change their mind or something about putting the show on the air. The producer guy, he's ruined, but the Kents stay young. It's insane. It's totally ludicrous. But I mean, if you have to come up with a story to de-age people. Right. Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit. Do whatever you want. It's weird. It's funny. I guess I like it, but
yeah, it's
completely stupid that this is what is going down in the history books as the thing that turned the Ma and Pa Kent from being really elderly to merely middle-aged. Right. Just so the comic books can make sense. We have to have a TV producer from another dimension to do it to them.
I think it would have been interesting if they, like, the dimension they're from, the characters are fictional as they are here, and they just decide to recast them and get different actors. Like, sort of like when they'll flash out to like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee talking, and they change their mind about a story, and then the story changes Only instead of it being Earth, it's another dimension with like godlike beings making.
Oh, I'm thinking like Julius Schwartz and E. Nelson Bridwell are sitting in
Oh yeah.
in a story conference, and they're like, "What do we do?" And Bridwell's like, "I have an idea," and he goes over to the bookcase and he takes the Phantom Zone projector and he goes out on the streets of New York City and he sees this middle-aged couple who look almost exactly like Superboy does, and then he zaps them into the comic book and replaces them, and now the middle-aged or the elderly Ma and Pa Kent, they get transported back to modern day New York City and have to survive as retirees in New York City, live out the rest of their lives.
Nice.
Which won't be much longer. And these other poor people who were actually in real life, they're forced to be the parents of this kid in the comic book.
At some point, the ray wears off because they wanted to make it consistent. They die old later. We know that.
Uh-huh.
Whenever they depict their death, they have some story where like that wears off and they're old again, and then they get really sick and die like shortly afterwards.
Oh yeah, it's a youth serum that the TV producer somehow forces them to drink. That first letter was from Ken Hatfield of Bloomington, Minnesota. Good letter. Good germ of a discussion right there, Ken.
I was curious about this next letter regarding Liquid Man.
Charles Bear, Rancho Cordova, California.
I don't remember Liquid Man. Do you?
When Superboy walked out on the Legion is a story. I think this must be a throwaway. Just some nobody. Liquid Man. I wonder what Liquid Man's powers could be. What could they possibly be?
Right. Oh, I was just going to say, this is another example of, I guess, the lack of imagination of people at that time. Like, there's, one of Spider-Man's biggest foes is Hydro Man, who's very dangerous. He turns into water, he can drown him, right? You can't punch him, he'll punch right through him. There's all kinds of stuff. But they're like, a guy with water powers, what can that guy do? No imagination.
No, I think a guy named Liquid Man, he probably wants to make a big splash, but he just winds up looking like a drip.
Right.
Here's a letter from Vance Leisure of Hutchinson, Kansas. Glad to see Timberwolf and Chemical King in the Legion, but what is Chemical King's power? Is it changing one chemical to another, or what? I don't think even Mort knows what this is, and nobody knows. He says Element Lead changes one chemical element to another. Chemical King, however, has power to speed up, slow down, or otherwise alter chemical reactions. Since all sorts of important things, including our very life processes, are caused by chemical reactions, that's quite a power. So he can kill. Like that's all I get from this, is that Chemical King could end your life.
The problem is they created a character they weren't smart enough to utilize. Like, the right guy could probably make that character really interesting, but all these guys have kind of rudimentary science knowledge. I think they don't know how to exploit his power very well. Right. The writers. Jim Shooter's too busy, writing comics to pay attention in science class.
Yeah, but he also gets the ideas from science class, but checks out as soon as he hears, like, Quantum Queen. Like, you and I were just trying to explain what Quantum Queen of the Wanderer's power is, or she can turn into any radiation. But I'm like, I don't even know what radiation is, really. Like, you're like, it's electrons flying through the air. And I'm like, no, it's like heat. And like, who the fuck knows what this stuff is? So what is her power? What can she do with it?
Was there a guy named Radiation Roy? Or was that a different book?
No, that was a Legion guy. I don't know what his power is.
Checking. We should get him with Quantum Queen.
Like, what color would their kids be?
Oh, yeah, that's one of the letters coming up, isn't it?
It actually refers back to another letter. We actually did a video with that letter, too. But,
right.
This guy, he asked about how come Brainiac 5 doesn't suffocate in his impermeable force field? William Crum of Weston, Mass. Probably because nobody ever thought of it.
I actually thought that was a pretty fair question. How does that work?
Well, the answer is that Brainiac thought of that, and he just doesn't. Like, he fixed it. It's not a problem. Like the first thing Brainiac 5 does is like, how do I survive in my own force field? I'm going to address that problem. Like, he wouldn't accidentally. I mean, maybe sometimes this fucking stupid ass Brainiac 5 who does some dumb shit sometimes, he would forget to like provide himself with a source of life-giving oxygen in his force field. But I doubt it. That would be probably the number one thing that he does first.
Maybe it's as simple as he can survive as long as the air within the field is there. Because, yeah, if it had holes in it of some kind, then gas could get in probably, right?
Yeah, maybe the belt itself has an oxygen synthesizer in it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe a Koluan is like a plant, and he emits oxygen through his respiration.
We've never seen him breathe. For all we know, he doesn't need to.
We've never seen him breathe. Like when he's doing it with Supergirl, he doesn't work up a sweat or start breathing hard.
You mean her robot?
Right, yeah. So messed. Brainiac 5, you're sick, dude.
Something happened with it, too, where it ended up without its skin, and it was clearly a robot, but I don't remember what.
Is it because he made a costume out of the skin?
Yeah. There was like an explosion or something, and the flesh burned off, and it turned out that the girl that he was hanging out with was just a robot.
God, this poor guy.
Robot is charitable. I mean, it's a 30th century sex doll. That's what it is.
Right, but it's an android. It's like very close to being alive. It probably has a little bit of computo in there to make it.
What about Mario Farina's question?
Oh yeah, this is some like legal semantic kind of crap, right?
Well, I think he's calling out a double standard.
Yeah. Colossal Boy was charged with treason and spying and was expelled. Starboy was expelled for breaking the code of killing. Mm-hmm. And all the Legionnaires voted for that one, but not in the case of Colossal Boy. So Colossal Boy did a lesser crime and was expelled immediately, while Starboy actually killed a person, and they voted. So he might have had a fighting chance to stay a member of the Legion. And then the editor says because Colossal Boy offered no defense, that was why he was expelled immediately. But so Starboy, he took it to trial.
That's what you got to do.
He still lost. He lost his case. He got dismissed.
Yeah. It doesn't work for everybody. It works for Robert Blake.
Rip Robert Blake. The little rascals, they can kill with impunity.
Right.
The next one is, it's this letter from Tori Adams of New Bedford, Mass. Like the gist of the question is, how come all the Legionnaires get along so well and there's no personality conflicts? And I've mentioned this before in some other of our conversations. Like, yeah, there ought to be somebody or ought to be a couple who can't stand each other, or who are, they just have different types of relationships.
Right.
And it's never really depicted. They're all kind of really cool with each other. They all work well together.
Right. There's none of your standard teen drama in this. Like, nobody, like, cheats on each other. Or
yeah. Like, in this issue 375, earlier in the comic, there's, like, the parts where each of the dudes vying for the champion Legionnaire, their girlfriends are kind of defending them and saying, well, my guy should be this best guy because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
That's about it. They don't, like, whatever, fight or stop talking to each other or anything like that.
Right. And they kind of weasel out of that with their answer. They're like, they're being professionals because they're on duty. Like all that kind of shit happens off panel.
Yeah, this whole letters page has a lot of really weaselly responses to the letters. But yeah, they're just so professional that they don't have any problems at work. Like their kids, this is their job or whatever.
Though I guess we do see a little bit, not long from now, like that Duo Damsel story is a little scandalous, isn't it? Isn't like one of her halves like sneaking off?
But see, that's a personality conflict within one person.
Oh, right.
Or, yeah, where one of her bodies, leaves, gets engaged to a dude, and becomes a criminal. Yeah.
Around that same time, we also see Timberwolf getting addicted to drugs. Wasn't it like some kind of flower he gets addicted to? Yeah, it like becomes like a problem. I think he has to go like to rehab or something crazy.
Like Flowers Anonymous.
Yeah.
A letter after this one from Scott Wilkie of Walnut Creek, California. He's asking about how Chameleon Boy has very similar powers to a bunch of the other Legionnaires. Doesn't that make him the most powerful Legionnaire?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is no.
Right.
So there you go.
I feel like these are all pretty solid questions. Like, I wondered about this one a lot myself. Like, I remember, what is it, like, Volume 3, the annual with Starfinger, he shrinks down to, like, a molecular level and sneaks out of a prison. And I just thought that was bullshit. That's unfair. Like, he shouldn't be able to do just anything that Shrinking Violet could do. There's got to be some limitation. Like, if he were to make himself bigger like Colossal Boy, he wouldn't be as strong, right? Like, he doesn't take the powers or the strength of the things he turns into. Isn't there a limitation like that?
This letter writer uses Stone Boy as an example, or Pharaoh.
Right.
Lad. And they're
Right.
like, well, he can't do that. He can't become iron. He can't become stone. He can
Right.
appear to be stone or appear to be made of iron.
Right.
I don't know what exactly Colossal Boy does. Does he get stronger as he gets bigger? I would assume he doesn't have just the same strength as a regular
Right.
sized man when he's 10 feet tall.
I think he gets stronger, yeah.
But I think Chameleon Boy would just be big and not any stronger.
Like he'd be hollow or something?
Yeah. And I think it would be impossible for him to become microscopic or subatomic in size like Shrinking Violet. It's like a whole different set of things. But I don't know.
A little interesting footnote here. He says, by the way, can he split in two like Duo Damsel? He does that in the next issue.
Good idea, this letter writer gave him.
He doesn't literally do that, but what he does, he's fighting this like Thor-like barbarian character, actually, and he makes himself look just like him. The guy he's fighting has like a power hammer, but his hammer is just part of him, and he, from his body.
Separates a piece off of his body
to become the hammer he's carrying, and then he swaps it with the real hammer.
That's interesting. I wouldn't think he would be able to do that.
I wouldn't either, but could he merge with Prody? Like two pieces of Play-Doh? Could they mush together?
This next letter from Kitty Malone of St. Louis, Missouri. She's talking about the response from the editor from a few issues ago, talking about the color of the potential children if Brainiac 5 and Shadowlass had kids.
Mm-hmm.
He said they would be blue-green, but this kid, Kitty, she asked her biology teacher, and the biology teacher said they would either be blue or green and not a mix of the two. Putting it that way, I think Mort Weisinger's response is probably more likely than the biology teacher's, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they're different species. Like humans, you might get a mixture of the two.
Right.
But like a blue horse and a green dog, and they have a child together. I don't know what you're going to get.
Or what color it'll be. Yeah.
We have to cut that out. I don't know. I don't think that's quite right.
I don't know.
Seems kind of fucked up.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. When I first, I think St. Louis has for long been a pretty what do you call it? Metropolitan. Like there's lots of different
town.
Well, no, there's a lot of different people. When I first saw Missouri, I'm like, obviously this person has never seen anyone of mixed heritage before. I think the last one's a decent question as well.
Nelson Hardy of Carlisle, Mass.
It's not really a question. Maybe it's a statement. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. They're talking about how lucky or unlucky Lightning Lad is.
Right.
And how, compared to Pharaoh Lad or Triplicate Girl, that's the luck I'd prefer to have, where I don't die or I die and I come back to life.
Right.
And there's an equally evasive answer to this question.
Right.
Yeah, I would definitely prefer not to die than to die and be Pharaoh Lad.
He's pretty lucky. Oh, really? He writes.
So what if he died? He lost an arm, but he got a new one.
He mentions all the ones that aren't so lucky. Yeah, Lightning Lad needs to check his privilege. He's
Definitely.
got it pretty good.
Right, yeah, this unlucky guy who, like, he has his own plantation on another planet full of naked ladies.
Right.
Boo-hoo.
Must be hard.
Hey, do you hear that?
Is that a violin?
I think that's the sound of the smallest violin. I didn't get you as good that time as I did the last time. You thought
I fell for that hook, line, and sinker last time.
I didn't have a big grin on my face that time either. This time I was like being real stupid. I think Duo Damsel Triplicate Girl is like one of the most messed up things. Like even in that new movie.
Oh, it's really bad in that. They're totally dismissive of the fact that one of them died.
Do not care. Like, that's totally disposable. Like, that's a third of your life form. Like, whatever.
And they also depicted it very, like, horrifically. They showed her face and, like, half of it was gone and sizzling and her eye was wide open.
Yeah, she gets fried, like, by Mon-El's heat vision or something.
Right.
At first, they make the audience think that she's dead. Like, she got dead. She's messed up and dead. But then, like, later it's like, oh, that was just one of my bodies. No biggie.
Right.
Come on.
And then there's that, it's sort of an Easter egg, I guess, for old fans, but it's sort of a fuck you to them. Like, oh, yeah, Duo Damsel. No, that's a fucking dumb name.
Uh-huh.
Right? Duplicate Girl.
I guess that's all right. But Duo Damsel is...
That's the best.
There's already a Duplicate Boy, and we know what Duplicate Boy's power is, and it's not the same as Duplicate Girl's power is going to be. She needs to stick with Duo Damsel so we can differentiate the duplicate people's powers.
Well, she does end up, in the Levitt stuff, she becomes Duplicate Damsel. Because I picked up the Simonson one. In that, there's like 50 of her or something. Like,
right, she's multiple man now.
Right.
But yeah, that becomes her power, is that she can duplicate herself into many bodies. Instead of whatever, 2 or 3. Is that the end of the letters page?
It is.
All right, well, that was the Legion Outpost in Adventure Comics 375. See you again in 30 days.
Long live the Legion.